everybody. Let's hear it for the boys this July 4th as we recap the latest episode. I'm Alex.
I'm Justin.
I'm Pete.
And we're going to be talking about Season 4, Episode 6, Dirty Business. So if you haven't checked it out on Prime Video, please do check it out right now. But to get into big spoilers, right here at the top, because the big stuff goes down here. It's time. As we speculated last episode, the Gabrus theory, as the whole internet is calling it, is true.
Yes.
While Butcher and Joe Kesler are off torturing Samir to try to force him to recreate the virus, turns out by the end of the episode, Joe Kesler, not real. He's a hallucination, just like Becca. The game has changed once again.
Just like scientists.
Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, everybody else is doing what I don't know. Meanwhile, what are you talking about? Meanwhile, everybody else is doing what I like to call a gossip girl, which is they go to a party and ruin it. In this case, it is a Federalist party held at Tek Knight's house where they're trying to get information out of him as to what he was doing talking to Sage in the previous episode. Hughie goes undercover as Webweaver, the show's version of Spider-Man, and gets BDSM tortured and then actually tortured by Tek Knight, ultimately leading to the death of Tek Knight by the end of the episode, as they find out the ultimate plan is to create internment camps in Tek Knight's private prisons to throw all the dissidents who aren't agree with Homelander, Sage, and now Victoria Newman's plan to throw a coup, do the 25th Amendment, and take over America. So big stuff going down here on Independence Day. Hooray! Hooray for America! Ha ha ha!
Great politics inside and outside of the television show The Boys.
I mean, they did say at the, a lot of the actors were saying like, oh, you think the things that happened were messed up in the previous seasons. Like this season has the most messed up. And that they really delivered. They really delivered in a way that I wasn't ready for. And, good for them for getting crazy.
Wait, what do you think was the messed up thing? I'm curious, Pete, because there's a lot of messed up things that happen in this episode.
Yeah, I think the what Hughie has to endure.
When Starlight jabbed Firecracker, that's the only part I thought was fucked up.
Oh, wow, that was it?
Yeah, because I want to hear what she says.
Other than everything else.
Like, let her speak.
Exactly.
Believe. No, never mind.
Wow. Good.
Wow.
Happened in my head too, but I didn't say it. So that's the difference between
Not mine.
you and I. A couple things. First off, this show, dim view of Spider-Man. Man, there's just like what it is. There's no real take other than like, this guy's just a loser. It feels like.
Well, they teed him up in the previous episode when Butcher and MM were getting information to go backstage at Firecracker's, not rally, her 6-hour TV special thing. So they mentioned they had Webweaver as an informant, gave him heroin. He's been teased a couple of other times in the show as well. But yeah, this is the first time we got to see it. To me, that was the grossest moment of the episode, having to shoot the heroin up his butt and then getting a little bit of web squeeze right on MM.
Yeah.
I did love Hughie coming in immediately, being like, Purell, do you need... Okay, here you go. Good assistant behavior there.
I mean, there's a lot with The Boys across the board. I mean, this happens every season. We're in crisis point for basically everyone on The Boys. Starlight's powers aren't working. Butcher has Tyler Durden syndrome ×2. MM is having panic attacks. Like, Frenchie's in jail. Kimiko's waiting for him.
Oh,
it's sort of the low point.
Dude. Jesus.
Yeah. Hughie's having just like extreme reactions to both this wild situations he's in and the death of his father in a horrifying murder way. So
the "I'm not okay" line really hit. That was really impressive.
Yeah, and it's hard to tell where to navigate from here for this team. It feels like they're great at getting the information they need and honestly shifting the dynamic. The fact that MM shot Sage made her untenable in the meeting, pushing Homelander into a corner and having Victoria Newman step up. So I like the way that they're always affecting the action, even if they don't even realize it.
I think Homelander, and I'm certainly not alone here, but I think Homelander is one of the most interesting characters on TV right now. We've talked a lot about this season in terms of he was set up to be an unstoppable force. at the end of last season, and every single thing has whittled away more and more of his power, even if he technically gets power to take over America by the end here, thanks to these billionaires. That moment where he says, screw it, I'm going to do it myself, having that I'm going to fix it myself mentality when Sage is rendered stupid by getting shot in the head. He steps up and is like, we're going to do this, start spewing the lines, and the billionaires, which I thought was probably the best bit of parody of the episode, being like, cut the crap. We don't believe any of that. We don't believe any of the conspiracy stuff. Tell us what you're going to do. And he doesn't know any of the policy. He doesn't actually know how things work or how to run things. He just knows pure power, and that's it. And that's not actually how the world works. Allowing Newman to step up, leading to another great moment at the end of the episode, a disturbing moment where it turns out that Firecracker, I think as we speculated, I believe we talked about this on the podcast, is taking drugs to cause her to lactate as a special gift for Homelander, leading to him suckling on her like a little babe.
That's a nice way of saying it in a way.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe too nice.
I don't know how else to say
too
it,
nicely.
to be honest.
You're like, yeah, Homelander's the best, and then,
not the best. He's the worst. He's the bad guy. I think what they're doing
he's
is
you
the
started
best.
by being like, I think
No.
everybody agrees with me when I say this Homelander is one of the best characters ever.
best characters, but not qualitatively.
He's the breast character, the breastfeeding character on TV, I think is what we can say. But I do agree with you, Alex. He is the most interesting character on the show, and I agree on TV. Like the way that and the satire is always so sharp on this show. The way that he has it all on lock, but then gets way out in front of his skis, trying to do something that he's not skilled at and thinks he's skilled at. It's such a great target on like what a lot of the alt-right in this country is working toward and trying. And I thought it was really telling on the political side that in this episode, all of the stuff that they're saying is pulled out of reality. We get Jewish space lasers. We get all the goals and the conspiracy theories in a show full of insane things that are happening that are way outside of reality. The reality from the alt-right in our world matches that level of heightened insanity. I thought that was just a really smart, subtle thing to do here, especially when we get to the point that you said where the sort of real power brokers and the alt-right here in the boys' world are just like, cut the crap, because that I also think is how the real world works. And Homelander getting too far out of it and then having to go all the way back to his only home, which is breast milk, I thought was a real turnaround for him.
Well, I was a little disappointed in, Homelander's not great, but I just think that like I was very happy with him trying to be a good father to his son, and then him slide backward into just, rather be sucking on some titties. I just think it's one of those things where I was disappointed in him because I was like, oh, this is going to be interesting for Homelander trying to, be the best at or making his son happy or proud of him or have a real relationship. You know what I mean? So the fact that he kind of ditched his son to go do that, I was a little like, I get it, you're spinning out and there was a lot going on, but I was just like, oh, Homelander, oh no.
First of all, I take huge exception to the idea that a man can both be a good father and also want to suck on those titties, because lots of men can do both.
True,
Yeah.
but
We contain multitudes.
He did leave his son, you know what I mean, at a weird party, you know what I mean? So,
Well, he wants all that
Not
breast
a good
milk for
father.
I don't-
himself.
wait, no, he didn't
Sons
leave
also
him
love
there.
breast milk.
Pete, he did.
it's not like he's in the room going, let me know when you're done, Dad, so we can get back to, the party or whatever.
You think he's
You
still
don't know
sitting
that.
in Tek Knight's mansion just because we saw Homelander by himself towards the end of the episode? Like, there's a scene they cut from the episode where they cut back to Ryan, and he's like, hello.
Yeah, he's just kind of sitting in a corner and there's a bunch of weird old dudes standing around him. Like, where's
Pete,
your
I love
dad,
the idea
man?
that anytime you see a kid on television, they need to be watched at all times, or else it's just not good.
They need a
good
chaperone,
parenting.
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very important. I believe that's part of the union bylaws. I could be wrong.
Guys, I don't have any children, so I know what I'm talking about here, okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Pete. Homelander. Never mind. I'm not going to say it because Pete's going to misinterpret what I'm saying, but we've talked about the
Nice.
Homelander stuff a little bit. I do want to talk, and I know Pete's going to take exception to this as well. I think they erred a little bit with the whole BDSM sequence. And the reason I think that, to be very clear, I'm not into literally any of this stuff at all.
It seems like you're being very defensive of
I
it.
knew this was going to happen. But
Yeah.
all of those things.
You could say, well, we all have a safe word for this podcast, because you could say can sometimes be a
That
light
was
drug.
hilarious, though, how the butler at the end was like, it was Zendaya.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's
great
nice
word
to know.
choice.
Yeah.
Good
Yeah.
writing.
I
Fun
assume
joke.
that's a
Yeah, it's a fun
Spider-Man
joke.
right? Like, based
Oh,
on
I didn't even get that.
MJ in the Spider-Man movies. But
Yeah.
I don't know. Could be wrong there. My point being, I'm not into any of these stuff, but people are into this stuff. They're into cake sitting, they're into cake farting, they're into BDSM, all of those things. And to me, this felt like presenting it as, oh my God, isn't this beyond the pale and ridiculous and gross? I understand that's what they often do on a show like The Boys, but to me, the joke didn't work because it felt a little bit like kink shaming, kind of.
I hear you on that. I can definitely agree with what you're saying. I did think it was fun, though, that the person in the red suit kind of saved the day at the end. I thought that was a fun kind of
Former sidekick.
Yeah. So
The only thing I would push back on, Alex, because
Yeah,
I
please.
agree with you, it was definitely said, like, pushed as like, oh, this is weird, and Hughie is not comfortable with it, and so he's our audience surrogate almost across the board, so we're uncomfortable with it. But I do think they did a good job of pairing it with the tension of like, oh my God, he's about to be caught because he's not doing this right. He's not doing it the way that everyone else expects him to. That felt to me like it just sort of it wobbled that line a bit, so I see what you're saying, but it was all about him to be like, don't look because he doesn't have the spider butt part. And it's like, Hughie, can you hide your spider butt? Because that's the only mission here, because you don't have it. So that I feel like was the goal. I don't think the show was trying to kink shame. It just sort of edged the line, to use an edging
also
term.
great opportunity for Ashley to shine.
I guess, like, she kind of just shows up again, I think, to like push it farther. I understand what you're saying, Justin. I think that is the part of it that worked for me because it was putting Hughie in a horrible situation. Ultimately, that shot where Tek Knight is going to cut a hole in his stomach and he's screaming, really hard
scary
to watch. Very scary.
Oh yeah.
Well, and for all of the like, oh, this is such a window into their world, the Tek Knight basement world. Like, Hughie's horror was real, and then we get that moment that Pete said at the end where he's like really just straight up weeping, and it wasn't played for any sort of humor. I thought was a nice way to sort of like thread the needle of the trauma of what he went through last episode with the fact that he was like about to be tortured and then killed, and was able to come through that.
Sorry, Justin, I didn't mean to cut you off there. But also, what was impressive about a lot of what Justin was saying is there's these horrible things happening, but also the comedy of him going, lube? Like, he's struggling to be like, what's this guy's favorite thing in the world? You know, like, it was hard to watch, but also they did a good job of kind of letting some air out with some comedy there in a way that was like, so yeah, I definitely agree.
And let me say, the lube would be the worst safe word, I would think. Even if it's your favorite
Feels like
thing.
that comes up a lot. Just naturally.
That's like truly the most.
Oh, we're done immediately? All right.
Yeah.
Man.
The cake's not here yet, so.
And let me just take it back to the beginning to shift topics a little bit. Like, I can't believe this ripped off what's in my last will and testament is to have my ashes spread during the Made in Manhattan walking tour.
Oh my God, come on. That was hilarious.
Ripped from the headlines.
One
That was
great
hilarious.
last little detail for Simon Pegg's character that was
So
very
funny.
nice. That was great. Actually, to take a step back from that, we get that open scene with Jeffrey Dean Morgan as Joe Kesler. And I know Pete has been constantly calling him Negan on the podcast.
Yep.
His first line of the episode is wakey, wakey, eggs and bacon, motherfucker. And I was like, that has to be a Negan line. And it's not. It's actually
It's
not.
so in the voice. It's so in the
Yeah,
voice.
100%. The closest I looked this up just like as a kind of non-fact, but the character Simon, who was Negan's lieutenant, at one point says "wakey wakey eggs pancakey" in one of the episodes, but that's the closest he comes. But then he follows
Oh,
it up
wow.
with "I could just bash your head in, jog your memory," and again, I was like, they're just leading into the whole Negan of it all here at this point.
I mean, if you got
Yes.
Negan, use Negan. You know what I mean? Come on.
Well, while we're talking about this, why don't we talk about this plot line? Before we even get to the reveal about Joe, I still feel like they're really spinning their wheels here with this virus storyline. And I understand not everybody watched Gen V, but like we were talking about last week, the whole idea of that show was we need to build a virus to take out Homelander, but if you do that, it's going to go airborne and kill all the Supes. They shut that down. Over the course of this season now, same thing. They destroy the virus. They want to remake the virus strong enough to kill Homelander, but that's going to go airborne and kill all the Supes. It's the same conflict. So I'm still, we're almost done with the season and we're almost done with the boys because there's one more season after this. But I want us to move forward to whatever the next iteration here and see what happens.
But I do love this idea of a way for a Butcher to spin out. Like he becomes so obsessed with this virus that he's making horrible choices. He's talking to himself and different personalities and all that kind of thing. So I hear what you're saying, but I also really think it was a nice place to put Butcher in this episode to kind of like just what he's dealing with, what he's going through, and a way to kind of talk about the two sides of Butcher, you know what I mean, in a way that was kind of interesting and also a nice a nod to a very famous badass movie.
I hear you also, Alex. Like
Fight
in
Club.
the nice, and honestly, they did the full Fight Club
Yeah, they did.
montage. They like really did it, which I'm like shouts.
If you're gonna do it, yeah,
that.
come on. Yeah,
My
that's
favorite
fun.
part was him pouring the whiskey on the table and Joe Kesler wasn't there. I'm just imagining somebody from the CIA coming in and be like, oh, come on, man.
Right, pouring whiskey all over the table,
Clean up
wasting
your
whiskey.
table. Jesus.
Yeah, I like that there wasn't a cup there because the
Yeah,
cups.
that would break somebody. You know what I mean? They're like, I'll tell you anything. Just stop wasting the whiskey.
So, do you think it's interesting that Negan is fictional and the cups he's holding and other stuff is also fictional? Keep that in mind.
Yeah.
And that cup is like an evil version of the cup Butcher's holding.
Oh, wow.
The cup's
crazy.
Tyler Durden. You know what I'm
They're
talking about?
actually releasing that. They're doing a remake of Fight Club all with Dixie cups. Did you hear about that?
That's so cool. I love it. Because you know what?
Dixie
That
cups
applies.
are the evil version of any cup, though. So I think
They're doing it Muppet style where it's all Dixie cups except Helena Bonham Carter.
wow.
That's how I'm having a party, Muppet style, where it's just Helena Bonham Carter showing up, and then just
You're having a
bringing it
Muppet
on,
party?
and then a Muppet party.
I didn't get any invite to that. And I'm
not a
frankly,
Muppet
I'm
fan.
hurt.
You're not a Muppet.
I want to blame someone for throwing my mind off track, but it was me. It's like my own Tyler, my own.
you were gonna
Just
talk
say
about the
Zendaya.
virus.
Just
We're
say
gonna talk-
Zendaya. We could, yeah.
Yeah, Zendaya, get me back on track. Lube. What I was going to say is that this is clearly like the climax of this season, is whatever the virus is going to be, and it feels like it is going to be something big. To get into a little bit of theorizing while we're talking about this, Sage is up to something else. The scene that she has talking to Victoria Newman isn't a plan to just have Homelander be in charge. She wants to kill, I think, everyone. Mm-hmm. And you can tell that she doesn't like being in her own skin. She likes it when her brain isn't working. So I think she's in her seething anger, performance-wise, that they let her do here, that we see, I think means she's up to something else. So I think the virus is going to. I think she's sort of trying to puppet everyone the way that she knows that A-Train's the mole and isn't telling anyone. There's a larger scheme here. But I also think for the sort of season 5 being the end, it really feels like they're already like, well, let's use up Tek Knight. We're not going to come back to him. Let's use this. And that feels exciting. While you feel like they're spinning wheels with the virus storyline, it does feel like they're like, well, let's burn all this down as we build toward the end of the series by the end of next season.
And Pete, to the point that you were making earlier, I do appreciate what it's doing to Butcher. It's kind of like the button problem, right? Where you, what was the story? You press a button, you get $1 million, but somebody you don't know dies.
Don't know.
Yeah. So this is like a variation on that where he can get everything he's ever wanted. All Supes on Earth are dead, but at the cost of Annie and Kimiko die. So he needs to make a choice there. It's not exactly the trolley.
And Ryan.
And Ryan, yes.
That's a big one.
Perhaps most
Weirdly
importantly,
doesn't come up though, right?
No,
Well,
that's
he says
what,
Ryan.
Yeah, he talked. His wife is asking about Ryan, and I think that was one of the.
Okay.
Well, he actually, I think, says Ryan. I think maybe the Becca part of his brain says Kimiko and Starlight, and then he says under his breath Ryan.
Right,
okay.
but also before that, she's like, "Yo, have you even talked to Ryan? Like, what's up? You're going in the wrong direction."
Wait, are you saying Ryan sucks? P?
No.
Oh, you're saying she was saying you're not even doing that. I
Yeah.
thought you were saying, have you even talked to this guy? We don't need him. Get him out of here.
No. I was saying that like you need.
Well, you can't even talk to him. He's sitting in a room somewhere in Tek Knight's mansion, just waiting for somebody to pick him up.
Yeah, he wants his own glass of breast milk, or
Yeah.
Dixie cup,
Best way of serving breast milk, I think. The eventual reveal of Joe Kesler as a hallucination, even if you saw it coming, like many, many people did, I still thought this was great. The way this was executed, like, legitimately got chills when Joe yells at Becca. I just thought that was...
Oh, yeah, and he
That
was like,
was
wait a second,
very
you
well
can
done.
see her? Yeah, that was just like, oh.
Yeah, well shot, shocking. And I'm really curious to see what happens next, too, because granted, there's not a lot of episode after that, but immediately after that, Becca, the way Chantal Vincenta, the actress, plays it, she just sort of retreats into herself and disappears into the background. So I wonder if Joe has essentially taken over and we're not going to see Becca again because he's now the dominant personality or almost the dominant personality in Butcher.
Interesting. I have the flip
Because he
take.
walked away. It was like he was walking out. I don't know.
No,
Maybe
I
he's going
think
to
we
pick
don't.
up Ryan.
Or
Somebody's got to. I mean, that kid's just fucking at a weird party, man. You can't just leave a kid at
And
a
everybody
party.
at the party is like, we really gotta go. We can't go if you don't go, so we gotta
Yeah.
keep the party going as long as you're here. So can somebody pick you up? Because I'd love to go home.
I like that you think that the evil part of Butcher is also a good father, a good babysitter. He's like, hey, man, we got to pick up this kid. My theory is that we don't see Becca because she takes over the actual Butcher. And then Negan, being the sort of uber Butcher, is the one is going to have to fight again. Because the way that Butcher in the guy in the world is looking at camera at the end, I feel like he's like, I'm in trouble. I need to fix this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess we'll see what happens there. I do like this reveal. I'm curious to see what happens next with it. We also get confirmation that it was Joe who killed Ezekiel, and presumably also Joe that cut off Samir's leg. So I'm assuming there's some sort of superpowers thing that happens when Joe takes over Butcher, is probably what's happening here. But good stuff.
Gotta
Well
be.
done. Lots of other things happening in the episode, though, we can talk about. I'd love to talk about MM and everything that's happening with him.
Oh, yeah.
He, as we saw last episode, is getting hives. This episode, he has a panic attack in the middle of the mission. I thought this was, I'd love to see more of this because I like MM, but I thought this was mostly here for A-Train's storyline.
Yes.
That has been this very slow, well-done inching redemption. The moment where A-Train, under duress from Kimiko, does the right thing and gets him to a hospital, but sees the kid there smiling for him.
Oh, that was an
I love
unbelievable
that.
moment. So well acted and put forth. Also, the Kimiko A-Train conversation where she's looking for the books was amazing and just really cool and well done.
And nicely
Yeah, I
set
love
up.
the-
Oh, sorry, Justin, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I love that too. The books conversation where she's trying to communicate, I thought was really just a fun little bit. You know, not necessary, but cool.
No, it was very writerly. Like earlier in the episode, when she's climbing up the wall, she drops her phone and is like, I'll leave it there, which seems like a bad idea on a mission. But
Yeah.
I'm sure they had the idea of doing the book thing, got enamored of that, and were like, how do we set this up? This is how we set it up. But it worked, and it was a good scene, so it's okay.
It was so good.
What about the Annie stuff? She is very much having Spider-Man 2 disease where her powers are hitching up. I've seen a lot of back and forth about that online where people are kind of pissed off about this storyline. They feel like they nerf, the term I saw was nerfing the female characters in particular on shows like this a lot. What do you guys think? How are you feeling about it?
Well, I do like the fact that it made, because I feel like if she had superpowers, she just would have been like, fuck off, firecracker. So the fact that they had to have that conversation and she had to kind of own her shit a little bit, and then also kind of admitted, like, you know, you're also being awful. And so I liked that part, but I agree. Like, it's not fun to see Starlight without her powers, but I think a lot of the characters on this show struggle with things, and that's one of the nice things. So, like, to see her have to try to deal without that, it's kind of interesting. So, I'm not saying that I'm for nerfing or anything like that, but I do appreciate that the fact that, like, it's fun to see this side of Annie and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's forced her to be sort of approach the world in a different way, but I don't think it's nerfing. I think what it is, like when you had those cars when you were a kid and you pulled them back and pulled them back, and the further you pulled it back, the longer it went. Right. I think they're building up for a major Starlight explosion.
That I thought it was going to happen with that conversation with Firecracker. I thought maybe like she would get confidence in herself, and then she would get the powers. But yeah, the fact that they're holding it back and, like you said, still winding it up is better.
She hasn't reconciled with, the way she feels about herself and what she did, and that's what's holding her back. But we're going to get it. I can almost guarantee it.
We touched on this a little bit, but Kimiko and Frenchie, she keeps going back to the jail and wanting to see him. Frenchie entirely off screen this episode. What do you guys think about that? Pete?
I mean,
you love it?
It was sad, but very beautiful. And the fact that she's not giving up on Frenchie, even though he's giving up, was amazing. And I almost wonder if they're just going to break him out or something. But I wonder how they're going to get him to kind of see visitors, if it's going to take all of them kind of trying to visit, or what's going to happen. But just it was just so amazing. What a good friend she is.
Go sitting in the lobby. It is a good bit of dedication, but I think it's a lot of her guilt for not dealing with it earlier.
But also the fact that she's not going to give up and she's going to keep showing up for him every day is pretty awesome.
Yeah, it is nice, but I think my take on it is the point is she could have just talked to him before that, and then they wouldn't be doing it, and she's struggling with the guilt of that. I do think they have to break him out, or he has to break out. How's it going to turn around for him? He needs to deal.
Beats a murder rap, I guess. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I assume he'll be back in the next episode.
Season 5, The Trial of Frenchie.
Oh, boy.
Courtroom drama.
Oh, boy. All right. Other things to call out here. Anything else in the episode we want to mention? Justin?
Well, I have is A-Train going to become a member of the boys by the end of the season?
It would be kind of amazing if that happened.
I don't know if he can, right? Like, wouldn't his choice, if he flips over to the boys, Homelander kills him and probably kills all of them. I don't think there's any way around that.
Well, but they've danced around that. Starlight did the same thing. They can find a way around anything, I feel like, on this show. But the way the show is just going so hard to show him how bad this world is. Mm-hmm. The conversation for the Tek Knight's having, where like, I come from a family of slave catchers. Now we own private prisons.
Oh my God! And
you see A-Train's just there reacting to him, and Tek Knight's mugging toward him. I was like, "Woof, this is harsh," and it makes me think that we might get A-Train on the boys. We get to see in the Made in Manhattan scene a black addict. Cab movie from the Vought cab topper. So the show is very much the ecosystem. It feels like it's pushing him toward that, and I hope we get there. Honestly,
yeah. It's impressive what they're doing with A-Train, and from where A-Train started and where he is now. It's pretty awesome. I did want to just, while we're talking about Mother's Milk, do a quick fit check here.
You're talking about breast milk.
Nope. MM. Talking about MM.
Mm-hmm.
His BIG switcher was fantastic, and the those Jordan 1s when he killed over were also pretty glorious. So it's pretty awesome.
Great shoe to go out in.
Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
also mention you mentioned the Gimp who's dressed all in red. They
Who saves
shout
the day?
who saves the day. Very funny physicality on that character. That was Ladio, who is basically the Robin to Tek Knight's Batman in the comic books.
Oh, wow.
Ultimately, he grows up to be Swing Wing, which is their version of Nightwing. There's a lot of messed up stuff that happens there that I won't get into. We didn't talk about, there's a quick weird scene of the new Black Noir with his mask off
Oh,
talking
yeah.
to the
Yeah.
Deep, and the Deep talking about how violence is power and how it used to make the Deep super horny. We also very
Noir,
casually
super
find out,
horny.
yes, Noir who's super horny. We also very casually get the detail that this new Black Noir can fly. Like he's like, and of course
I
they're gonna
thought that
let
was
me
so
fly.
funny.
I love that. Add new details about him every single episode. It was a great running bit.
Well, and I like this reminded me of a lot of stuff in Gen V where they make a more direct comparison that being a superhero is like being an actor.
Mhm.
And this Black Noir is very much like, I got a gig, I'm taking it. I'm taking a tour. That's really funny. And the way that the Deep is talking here was an interesting switch from him just being the goof
Yeah.
and the heel of the joke, the butt of the joke, to like he's saying like violence is power and I'm going to seize that. I was like, oh, that's a sort of a darker
I
position
mean,
for
that
him
made
to
me
be.
wonder. We've talked a little bit about Sage having that conversation with him in the elevator and kind of pushing him in that direction. I wonder
Yeah.
if this is part of her overall plan, if she needs the Deep to be a darker version of the Deep, a more violent version of the Deep for some reason, and that's why we're getting this.
Can you imagine the Deep being used by someone as a pawn? That would be
No,
crazy
no, that
on
doesn't
this
seem
show.
possible. He's got his own
Uh,
ideas about everything.
the couple other things I wanted to say is we had Homelander and Newman talking about Stan Edgar, and Homelander still seems scared of him. I thought that was interesting. It made me think that maybe he hasn't been killed.
Yeah, I don't
Because
know. That
it,
was such an interesting conversation. On these types of shows, bodies or it didn't happen, but it did make me wonder if they're leaving it open. Like, I feel like the
yeah,
implication of Victoria looking at him and him giving a resigned look at her was she blew up his head. And this conversation
yeah.
certainly could be taken as Stan Edgar is dead. They both know it, but they can't say it to each other, or it could go the other way. And I don't know. It seems like one of those TBD things of, yeah, we'll decide later if we need Giancarlo
Him to be
Esposito to
back.
come back.
I mean, why wouldn't you
Yeah,
need him?
I know.
yeah. He's the best. Especially to have him go out in sort of a weird episode that wasn't really about him. I thought was strange, but it did put him back on the board. So maybe he'll come through later on. The scene when Victoria Newman blows off her own head as she's listening
Oh
to
my
BDSM
God, that was
outside.
so funny.
That
It
was
was a
just a
fun.
joke, which I was for a second I was like, "What?" And then I was like, "Oh no, a bit."
Yeah, it was very
Uh,
funny to see them put that in the promo for the episode and everybody lose their minds over it, being like, how dare you put that in there and spoil that moment? But yeah, very funny joke. She was
Yeah.
great the whole episode. She continues to just be a really, really good character.
And it was nice to see her
agreed.
interact with Sage. I thought that was it was fun.
It was
And
interesting to
Very.
me that I don't disagree necessarily, but given the whole Sage plan of it all, you take it as Sage for the first time is really telling the truth here, right? That she's telling the story about
Yeah.
her grandma getting cancer. She came up with a cure for cancer. Nobody cared, so she's just going to
wow.
burn the whole system down. You take that as truth?
Did think that was truth, the way that the performance was. You're saying you think it was a performance for
No,
Newman
I
to get a good
actually I
gig.
don't know either way. I really think it could go either way because I agree with you. I think the performance was really selling it. But if we are going to get this master plan reveal from Sage at the end of the season, it also feels like, well, she could just be this is what Victoria Newman needs to hear. We are bonding
True.
as underprivileged kids. I'm telling you this story to get you in the position where I need you to be to do this coup. I don't know.
And that's fair because we get that nod off that Newman and Sage do at the end when Newman's nodding at her and Sage is like brain damage and it's just like, huh?
I
And
thought it
he's like,
was.
huh?
I thought they
It's
had
very
come up
funny.
with like a plan or something, and at the end of like a speech, she was going to nod, and then Sage was going to do something. But because Sage was so messed up, she was just like, ah, ah.
No, that was Newman doing exactly what Sage said, appealing to everybody's pocketbooks, playing their game while Newman has her own motive for her own power and her base motive is protect my daughter at all costs. That's what she wants. So this is how she's going to protect her daughter, is step up, lead the coup with these billionaires. So that's why she turns back and nods at Sage. But like Justin was saying, she was shot in the head. All she wants to do is get crunch wraps and eat cake.
But that was a fun kind of reference. She was also eating the chocolate cake that Hughie.
I think it was a different cake. I don't think
I know, sure, but it's a funny thing that you know.
For sure. Multiple German chocolate cakes.
You're not going to bring the fart cake back upstairs. Once a cake's farted on.
If you're sadistic enough, you would make them kind of put it back together and then serve it to the people.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that you think that means I'm not eating at your house when you eventually have us over.
Yeah. By the way, when she said, I once ate a whole bag of candy corn, Pete, was that the first time you felt yourself seen on television?
Yeah, I was like, what? That's a Tuesday. Like, you know what I mean? Come on.
And
But it was a funny line to say.
Yeah.
That is Pete's safe word, whole bag of candy corn. Just so anyone needs to know that. A couple other things in the episode.
I say too much for it to be my safe word.
Firecracker, you want it to stop, or do you want candy corn? Try lube for your safe word.
Yeah.
The Firecracker continues to be a good character, I think. The bit where she doesn't like the tuna cone and like Sage is like, they have Sunny D and Everclear at the bar was really funny. And Firecracker is as useless as tits on a mouse. Another good line. I really liked, they continued to push Ashley, like you were saying, Pete, into just further and further places from the sort of meek character we first met. Her saying, I am 100% a cannibal, that was really real in that moment. And then
I'll
I
spray you like a skunk line was also, I was like, oh my God.
Good stuff, going hard. The use of the song Rosanna, very funny. And then the Kiwi's line, how do you torture a masochist? I thought was really funny. And the bank thing, the sneakers, if you ever seen the movie Sneakers, I thought that was a cool moment as well.
Yep.
Good stuff. Before we wrap up here, why don't we talk about who was best boy in the episode? Pete, you want to go first? Who was best boy?
I got to say, Kimiko, everything that she did in this episode was hysterical and amazing and powerful, and just absolutely glorious.
Justin, what about you?
I'm going to give it up for Homelander. I just feel like this was another great arc for the character.
As a parent, you should not say that.
Because he's lapping up all the breast milk, you're saying.
No, because
save some for the rest of us, guys.
If you can't leave your children at weird sex parties, man. You can't just do that. You know what I mean?
That was a weird party with a sex party going on just right below it. So,
so you think that's okay?
It's like two levels of party. It's like the two levels of a German chocolate cake.
Yeah, a fart cake.
Yeah, one of them's got farts.
Anyway,
the other does not.
Oh, I've got to put the fart layer on my cake before the party. But anyway, Homelander like continues to be like just the character that I'm always following in this show.
Boo.
Do you think if you made a layer and then fart in the cake and quickly slap the second layer, would it flap up like a whoopee cushion? If you opened it, it would be like, do that?
There's only one way to find out. Let's do a cooking show. But the main ingredient is farts.
I'm going to give it up for the German chocolate cakes then, I guess, is best boy. No, I'll say, you guys took the good ones. I'm going to say A-Train, I think. I really like the development here.
That's a good answer.
Really good moments. I'm very excited to see what happens with him next. Should be interesting. And if you'd like to support this podcast and all the podcasts we do, patreon.com/Comic Book Club. Also, we do a live show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. to Facebook and YouTube. Come hang out. We would love to chat with you about the boys. Apple, Spotify, Android, or the app of your choice to subscribe, listen, and follow the show at Comic Book Live on Twitter/X, Comic Book Club Live on TikTok and Instagram, comicbookclublive.com for this podcast and many more. Until next time, happy 4th of July.
Oh, yeah. And the best way to celebrate is to give a cake to your friend when a fart jumps out of.
Don't do that.
Zendaya.
Zendaya.